who really won the Venezuela presidential election. Nicolas Maduro and his political opponent, Edmundo Gonzalez, both claimed victory in the election on Monday. With 80% of the votes counted, the Venezuela National Electoral Council announced that the current president, Maduro, secured more than 51% of the vote, while the Democratic Unitary Platform candidate Gonzalez got 44%. Therefore, Maduro will continue to be in power for another term of 6 years. However, the opposition party said that they have 73.2% of the voting tally from Sunday's election, allowing it to prove election results give it a victory. I invited the executive VP with Edison Research, Mr. Rob Farbman, to talk about that. So welcome to our show, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Edison Research did an exit poll on the July 28th. And your poll actually showed that the opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, will defeat Nicolas Maduro in a landslide win to become the Venezuela's next president. But, you know, the reality right now is actually the election committee announced that Maduro actually won the election. So why there's such a discrepancy?
Well, I can't speak for the election results put out by the Election Commission. I can speak about our exit poll, which, as you mentioned, did not show a close race. It showed a landslide of 34 points between the two candidates. We do exit polls in the United States. We've been doing them for CNN, CBS, ABC, and NBC for over 20 years. When we have a blowout like this, there's really no question of who's going to win. This is a massive landslide. So when we saw the results from the government, we certainly assumed that they were fabricated in some way, because our poll left no possibility that Maduro could have won the election.
So could you explain to us, how did you do the poll?
We had a statistically valid sample across the country. So we had 100 different voting locations across the country that represent the country by geography, by different parts of the country. And within those 100 locations, we sampled voters. So as people left the voting location, we asked people to participate in the exit poll. So in total, we had over 8,000 interviews across those 100 locations. And from that sample and those 8,000 interviews, we had our projection of 65% for Gonzalez and 31% for Maduro.
Your poll also shows like a different age group and different location groups, right? Can you just give us more details?
Yeah, in the past, Chavez and then Maduro in 2013, they showed a lot more support among older voters and also rural voters and certain categories that were very loyal to both Chavez and Maduro. In our exit poll, Gonzalez had a wide lead among all age groups, which was kind of surprising to us. Even among the oldest age group, 60 plus, there was a 20-point gap, 58 to 38, between Gonzalez and Maduro. So the support was widespread. Of course, among younger voters, you'd expect the opposition to do better, and they did very, very well. They won 74% of the 18 to 29s. So more younger people voted for the opposition, but even those 55 or 65 plus also voted for the opposition by wide margins. So the old, devoted Chavez voter has even turned against Maduro at this point, or a large portion of them have.
And you mentioned to me that you also did an exit poll in 2012 when Chavez, was in the race. So, yeah, can you just give, some insights on that as well?
Yeah, I think we can see the real differences in the state of democracy in Venezuela, because at that point, everyone was very confident in the Election Commission, and they took their vote to be, when they put out the vote, to be true. Our exit poll showed that Chavez would win, And when the vote came out and he had won by 10 percentage points, the opposition didn't really question it because while there might be quote unquote cheating before the election in terms of funding and making voting difficult for certain groups, the actual count of the election was always assumed to be accurate in Venezuela. And that way it was a democracy. So there wasn't a lot of variance between our exit poll and the vote, but that's because Chavez won. There was no need to cheat in 2012. This time around, as mentioned, there's a huge gap, of 25 percentage points between what our survey showed and what the Election Commission ultimately released. So just a different situation in terms of democracy in Venezuela.
You mentioned that you've been with the Edison research for almost 30 years, and obviously you have a lot of experience. So have you ever encountered such kind of, really a discrepancy between an exit poll versus the real result?
No, I've never seen anything remotely close to this type of discrepancy. It just really cannot happen. There's survey error for sure. Surveys are not perfect. Exit polls are not perfect, but that would mean a variance of several points, but not 30 points or more.
You mentioned how the democracy declined in Venezuela. What's your insights on this, during the past 10, 11 years?
Well, I can't say much beyond the polling we've done, but again, certainly past 2013, the elections they've either not been contested because the opposition has known it wouldn't be honest or they wouldn't have a fair fight, or their candidates were not allowed to run. So there's really been no election that you could call a democratic election in the last, 10 years or so. So that's how things have changed.
Mm-hmm. And just maybe compare your field office, the staff who work there in Venezuela back in 2012 versus this year. And according to their experience talking to those voters, did they say any, is there any real differences, like big differences in terms of the voters?
Well, we've had a very high response rate in Venezuela. In 2012, our response rate, meaning the percent of people we asked to participate, what percent say yes, I believe it was around 75% in 2012. The election the other day, it was around 70%, so down slightly, but way, way higher than we see in the United States, where it's under 50%. So people were not really afraid to take the survey, and response rates were high, and that was the case in 2012. The big difference for us is that we really had to do things sort of undercover this time. The local field partner that we used was afraid for it to get out that they were working with us. They were afraid of reprisals. So everything was kind of kept on the down low with our field company. And we were very careful to make sure they were safe in the whole process, because there was certainly a lot of danger for them agreeing to do this for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we heard the reports about how the government arrests those people who provide services to the opposition parties. Yeah.
Fortunately, we were prepared for a lot of government intervention with our interviewers, either police or army interference. And we had backup locations ready. If we were ejected from any of our 100 locations, we actually did not have as many problems as we had expected. And I think they just caught on late what we were doing. And by the afternoon, we started having interference at some locations by police or army individuals. And I believe we only had 5 people who were actually told to stop, or in one case, a person was actually detained by the police, but we got them released. But I think the government caught on a little late in the day that we were doing the exit poll, and then we started getting a lot more interference, but we were pretty much done at that point. So fortunately, it didn't have a big effect on the poll.
I see. So are people afraid of retaliation from the government potentially?
I feel that our field team is pretty safe because again we've kept it pretty private who is doing this poll. So I'm hopeful that they're not in danger, and certainly the government now has a lot more people to worry about than us in terms of opposition. So, but yes, I'm hoping everybody stays safe who is involved in the project.
Right. So yeah, anything else you would like to add?
Again, I can only speak for our poll. Polls are not perfect, as I said, but when we saw that result, we knew that, of course, immediately knew that something was amiss and it could not be an accurate reflection of the vote. So we hope ultimately the real vote is released by the government or some other conclusion is reached that reflects the will of the voters.
All right. Thank you, Rob, for being on our show.
Okay. Thank you.
The United States and the multiple global leaders voiced doubt on the results, handing victory to Maduro and called for a full tabulation of the votes. But as of now, Maduro government refuses to publish the election records. So what do you think? Please share your comments. And remember to click like and subscribe to the channel and click on the little bell. So I'm Cathy Zhang. We'll see you next time.